And we're live. And we're live. Anyways, Bismillah. This is from the marriage of Hazrat Uthman, radiallahu anh, an epic. Bismillah. Proem, page 3. The face of love. These names and games and blames do not describe you, love. Your rank and wisdom, beauty too, suffice to prove it's really wrong to view this little world as ranked above a bribe. If you, my love, were facing west and smiled, the west would blush and die of ecstasy. The east, gone mad, would die of jealousy. Though I survived your glance, my wits exiled. I know not what I want, and you want me. I'm your beloved, but no, can that be? It's not confusion, nor a thankless jest, nor some despair inside a treasure chest. I'm speechless with the sky inside my chest. I saw your face, and thus live stunned, but blessed. By Sayyid Abu Affan, Zishan ibn Abu Mali, Al-Hasni, Al-Husseini, Al-Uthmani, Al-Chishti, Al-Sabri, Toronto, 2001, Chicago, 2019. Introduction. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. From the book on Hajj of the Muwatta of Imam Malik, rahmatullah alayh, we find in the section titled Game That Is Not Halal to Eat in Ihram, the following hadith. Yahya related to me from Malik, from Abdullah ibn Abi Bakr, that Abdurrahman ibn Amir ibn Rabia radiallahu anhum said, I once saw Uthman ibn Affan in Ihram, radiallahu anh, may Allah be pleased with him, in Ihram on a hot summer's day at Al-Arj, and he had covered his face with a red woolen cloth. Some game meat was brought to him, and he told his companions to eat. They said, will you not eat then? And he said, I'm not in the same position as you. It was hunted for my sake. The companions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, represent the greatest generation of Muslims. Among the four especially distinguished companions is the one described in this hadith, Uthman ibn Affan, may Allah be pleased with him. Taught by the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, he achieved by God's grace mastery in the mystical aspect of Islam. It is no wonder then that in the above or preceding example, we find him adhering completely to the outward as well as the inward tradition of the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. Outwardly, Hazrat Uthman is following the Sharia, the laws of God, by not eating the food while on pilgrimage. Inwardly, he is engaged in tariqah, the spiritual relationship with God, by feeding hungry companions on a hot day. This kind of harmony of the outer with the inner is Islam, and enables one to be a complete and balanced human being and a true follower of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. Alhamdulillah. This epic poem was begun in 2001, Common Era, during a time of homelessness. It was concluded in 2014, Common Era, on the first full day I solely, all by myself, cared for my youngest child, with whom I share the same birthday. In between those bookends, between 2001 and 2014, I had the fortune of a myriad spiritual adventures involving travel, reading, university, apprenticeship, and marriage and fatherhood. For 10 years, this epic was set aside after writing the first 3 books of it, as the yearning for understanding Hadrat Dhun Nurain, radiallahu anhu, in a deeper existential way took hold of me. I was drawn toward informal and formal Islamic spiritual culture across North America. When graduating from immersion in spiritual practices and putting attention on academic schooling once again, themes about the Caliph, radiallahu anhu's life story began to emerge as hadith literature and hagiographic accounts helped give me insight into historical records. I hope to convey a sense of wonder, of love, of awe, and sublime beauty that has been the blessing of my life in writing this epic. I wish you, dear listener, dear reader, openings and ease upon your path toward the divine presence. The following poem was written during the decade-long hiatus from writing the epic, but can be considered the summation of the poem as a whole. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Praise. So that introduction was from Chicago. Praise. Remember, oh, the day that he was seen, advancing with his army that had been. So awesome it kept rival swords pristine, unused. Remember how he came to clean God's house of all the idols. Helmet's sheen recall when, as he rode, he bowed. So glean from his approach the etiquettes that mean we fail to praise God as God should be praised. His name is Ahmed in the skies, regime Muhammad to the mortals. Here prayers came with blessings round his name. He lived the dream of love. Each far-flung kingdom has a stream by which the poet sings. Each era's gleam, each lover's blush is from this man's esteem. God drew him near in pureness so extreme that all the veils of time and space were raised. So near he witnessed God by heart and gazed. The prophet Musa afterwards appraised our prophet's charge, who shy went back and raised the point with God. As prayers were reappraised repeatedly, so God then kindly phased our prayers to 40, 30, 20, 10. At 5, our prophet shied from asking when, God multiplying worth by 10. Amazed. We fail to praise God as God should be praised. Our prophet said that night he went past moon and stars and past all prophets too. As soon as it began, this lovely, timeless tune did it conclude. And life resumed with noon siestas, weddings, battles, and that boon of bowing from the bow's lengths. Praised is he who said, we fail to praise God properly. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. 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 بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم 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 Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. 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 And so humanity with him began, the one made by the hands of Ar-Rahman, the one whose spirit no creature could scan. He and his wife begat woman and man. So peace be upon Adam and his clan. Although the angels cannot answer, he can. Although the devil cannot repent, he can. Of both his sons the better was Uthman. And so prophecy descended again on him whose noble manners had no stain, on him whose measured subtleties could train, an angelic station he did maintain. So peace be upon Idris for his gain, a unique upbringing he did attain, a unique perspective he did attain. Angelic realms know him and Dhun Nurain. And so to mankind was sent another, a man who understood cosmic weather, a man who was the captain of wonder, he who became mankind's second father. So peace be upon Nuh, who knew sabr. Over centuries he bade folk enter. Under God's eyes he worked as carpenter. He empowered our first Amir al-Bahr. And so another gift from worlds unseen, a master of developments pristine, a master of peace and its golden mean. Through him his folk eternity did glean. So peace be upon Salih, the calm Dean. His sign of peace was like the evergreen. His sign in swirling seasons stood serene. Our sign, Uthman, Amir al-Mu'mineen. And so, once again, came the divine message through a man of beauty and privilege, through a man of heavenly advantage, he who reminded of temptation's edge. So peace be upon Hud, who knew usage. He showed how to travel without baggage. He showed how to honor the divine pledge. He fortified Uthman with core knowledge. And the Almighty to Uruk sent in, he who conquers fire by coolness within, he whose needs fit on the head of a pin. His dignity dazzled angels and jinn. So peace be upon Ibrahim and kin. Prophetic families with him begin. The secrets of friendship with him begin. Among the folk, Uthman, his greatest twin. And from Uruk a man was sent ahead, equipped with control that true power fed, enriched by presence that surrender bred. His strikes left dragons of indulgence dead. So peace be upon Lut, whose gnosis wed. He counseled souls, and though he could have fled, he purified the family instead. Among his heirs, Uthman the first to tread. And Ibrahim did have a patient son, he whose insight ripened under the sun, he whose promises completed their run. The master of elation is this one. So peace be upon Ismail, who won. His satisfaction leveled each disruption. His foresight saw in God all satisfaction. Through him, Uthman learned of the joyous station. And Ismail's brother was capable, himself a prophet most honorable, himself lordly, pious, and masterful. He saw the quality of each label. So peace be upon Ishaq, the noble. The ranks of creation he measured well. The vast, real moment he witnessed it full. With him, Uthman discussed the wonderful. And Ishaq's son was a heavenly gift, a man who would take patience as a craft, a man who would father, guides, and uplift. He was a great parent, both wise and soft. So peace be upon Ya'qub oft and oft. He saw through years when folks' dreams he would sift. He saw through the fabric of time Egypt. Like him, Uthman was right, though kids were miffed. And Yaqub's favorite child on truth stayed, although he was by his brothers betrayed, although he suffered and had rights delayed, he was constant in devotion and prayed. So peace be upon Yusuf the well-made. When he walks in a room, there is no shade. When he stands in a hall, stars swoon at his grade. The doubling of his light of man displayed. And so revelation came down once more upon a mighty man known throughout lore, upon a humble man who helped the poor, who wrecked tyranny like never before. So peace be upon Musa from love's core. With his staff he brought his people to shore. With his staff he finished the sublime chore. A prophet's staff of man did also store. And Musa's brother had a lofty fame. His awe toward God his armor became. His gnosis of ranks let him riches tame. The presence of mercy issued his name. So peace be upon Harun and acclaim. With mastery he passions overcame. With mastery he saw each moment same. Uthman through him advanced the path of blame. And then a prophet came besides all these. His story reminds us God oversees. The prayer he whispered hidden in the seas dazzled the cosmos and all other pleas. So peace be upon Yunus who gave ease. The midnight of love spoke with him of laws. The noon light of being enwrapped his cause. Instructed he of man on how light flows. And so a man came who knew government by enduring a mighty bereavement, by enduring an awesome skin ailment. He taught us spiritual management. So peace be upon Ayub the patient. He suffered trials but remained a gent. His sunlight smile no pox could ever rent. Our Sheikh through him observed divine assent. And another man was sent to declare, a master of rights of an estate's heir, a master of nights spent in patient prayer. He was with the truth, whether here or there. So peace be upon Dhul-Kifl the fair. He provided informality and care. He provided principle and easy air. The nuances he showed our Sheikh are rare. And again the Almighty blessed mankind, sending a master of manners refined, sending a master who smiled though maligned. The personal attacks he did not mind. So peace be upon Shu'aib who was kind. No fault in his conduct his folk could find, though grudges upon him his folk did bind. Our Sheikh his magnanimity defined. And so, again, the message was rehearsed by a man who quenched terrestrial thirst, by a man who quenched spiritual thirst, who said polytheism is the worst. So peace be upon Ilyas the well-versed. He told idolaters their ways were cursed, but with soul water he believers nursed. Upon the middle path the two conversed. And so came a prophet who knew each sign, a man who knew love and its every shine, a man who knew love and its secret mine. He was at work when his soul did incline. So peace be upon Al-Yasa the fine. He was a master who walked the straight line. His heart made that line an ocean divine. He showed our Sheikh the deep unseen design. And one day, heavenly decree came down. A caliph will be honored with a crown. A caliph will rule the sacred town. And when this happened, the jinns feared his frown. So peace be upon Dawood and renown. His fasting stayed fresh while tree leaves turned brown. In night prayers he all worries did drown. Like him, our Sheikh wore battle's metal gown. And then Dawood's strong son ruled in Asia and knew the beauty of the Bismillah and knew the beauty of the letter Ba. Jinns revered his prophethood's inertia. So peace be upon Suleiman with awe. His armies were strong in Arabia. His fame was known even in Africa. Such was Dhun Nurain from Spain to China. And so the next man came to teach virtue, a master who foresaw, though signs were few, a master of mysteries and their cue. He knew the secrets of love through and through. So peace be upon Zechariah too. By his wisdom he protected the true. He revealed silent conversation to Dhun Nurain radiallahu anhu. And of the first of men we must recite a lofty man himself, he feared God's sight. A lordly man himself, he knew God's right. And his martyr's soul feared no earthly slight. So peace be upon Yahya with true might. He preserved the book, advancing its light. And he inspired our Caliph doubly bright, who read Quran within a single night. And so, prophecy, with its momentum, shone through a man who sufficed on a crumb, shone through a man who left hypocrites dumb. He said, the last prophet Ahmed will come, so peace be upon Isa bin Maryam. Strong yet gentle, he was perfection's sum. He said, I'm but a mortal medium, and his leave, like our sheikhs, left the world numb. And so Esau's absence left us longing, and earth slowly slid back into wronging, and demons supported each tyrant king, and evil all sorts of evil did bring. So good folk prayed, God, remove this sting, send to earth Ahmed your greatest blessing, give him companions who his praises sing. Such were their prayers, and such was their yearning. And so, one night, a man who was 40, a man who was known as the Trustworthy, a man honored to the greatest degree by all the residents of his city, well, he sat alone in a cave to be far from his folks' idolatry, and he reflected on eternity. So, one night, the archangel he did see. Alas, unearthly light illumined night at once. Perhaps at last, all seemed aright. A splendor covered each and every one who stood or slept or lay in contemplation. I, truly unseen jinn, saw this descent of blessings by the millions heaven sent. Humanity as well was capable of sensing in the night a wonderful revivifying calm. Thus in this fine perception starlight could more greatly shine. And dreamers good dreams dreamt in every town, and demons lurched aghast, each wore a frown, for each was overwhelmed with mad confusion, perplexed to woe about this good occasion. The prophets, though, in heaven knew the plan, to harvest what they'd sown since time began. For 2 years a Persian fire knelt down, had earthquakes swooning cracked each Roman crown. Miles north of where the archangel had sat down, revealing words of might and great renown, just north around a wayside desert station, a caravan slept off the daytime action. Their sails in Syria were wonderful. They'd talk prophets at the dinner table. Thus, having stood to sell and sat to dine, the caravan slept neath their bottom line. Their snoring, though barely discernible, diminished round that one still capable to stay awake. He strolled away till sign and sound relinquished him to starry shine. He sat then silently in contemplation and gazed across the cosmos, eyeing reason. As time passed, breezes cooled, so he began to wrap his crimson shawl around his caftan. He watched his breath amid the starry sheen, recalling all he'd ever heard or seen. First, childhood memories when he was 7. Transporting rocks in his long shirt, he'd run as other boys and racing to be first. Then came this voice, as if the sky had burst, commanding, "Cover yourself, O young man." And thus he covered, losing every fan. The others heard each of his rocks fall down, but said they heard no thunder rumbling down. He then remembered later years and saw his smallpox come and go, but not the flaw of that idolatry in his hometown. He saw that twinkling light danced on a crown as well as in the sky. At 21, the merchant's work, as his late father had done, thus selling cloth exquisite, brought him fame, a pair of wives, some sons, and clout by name. All this adornment ordered not life's span. Recalling all, he wiped the sweat that ran about his beard and crimson shawl. At ease, he saw the light of all the galaxies. Stargazing and in contemplation fine, a loud clear voice spoke when he did recline. The Prophet Ahmed cometh unto man, to Mecca go then, follow him thy can. The voice I heard in childhood, thought he, blinking, yet who's this wondrous man of whom he is speaking? That moment on, no sleep nor worldly thing, distracted from this heartfelt questioning. With quick commands his servants capable, he left the caravan and passed each well. He stayed awake by intuition keen, and rode on faster through a town of green. He saw another caravan from Mecca. Within it was his Meccan friend, good Talha, who in Iraq heard Ahmed now emerges. The friends rode forth, two riders on the breeze. In Mecca, then, they sought the noble clan sage Abu Bakr. Who is Ahmed? Can thou tell us? Questioned they. He brought them right to house Muhammad. Ahmed's in thy sight, he said. The two then entered an ennobled comprehension of the man. Uthman and Ruqayya, Book 2. This ancient faith spread slowly one by one, and with deportment was the calling done. Some early morning gatherings, they can inspire one till the late night hours, as can sincere reflections that to cores attain. This ancient faith a dozen did sustain, then, after months, some more. But casual their faith was not, it was intention full. By disbelieving had they worldly gain, since by believing were they mocked and pained. By unity unlimited they saw through multiplicity's hysteria. Believers, mostly poor, kept caution's keys, and met in stealth to worship God in ease. Ethereal believers saw a man at meetings still, and wrapped in his caftan, made of exquisite wool dyed crimson. Can that be, they must have thought, Ibn Affan? Angelic wonder, spirits soaring, crane of neck, though slight to those close by, and gains of confirmation. Yes, from clan Umayyah, inspired, he wed the radiant Ruqayya, the Prophet's daughter. This Ibn Affan, once known as Abd Shams, was renamed Uthman, the name the Prophet gave him. Uthman's twain wives left him, protesting his faith. In vain his mother pressured him until he'd been, with rope, bound by that Al-Hakam, the lean clan elder, leader of the house Umayyah. And yet Uthman progressed in faith. In Mecca, here, after both his wives had left him for a season to denounce his faith, a score of single women started to adore him, the most eligible bachelor in town. But his own thoughts dwelled on the plan by angry Abu Lahab that would fan the fires of hatred at the Prophet's mission by cutting future family ties. When could you not know it? How the whole of Mecca felt pity for the Prophet. Both Ruqayya and Kulthum, his two young daughters, known to be engaged to Abu Lahab's own two sons, had their engagement severed. One can just imagine then how everyone, especially the parents, in this same town, later saw him as a lucky man. The wealthy and refined Ibn Affan sent his proposal for Ruqayya. Can a wedding be a glimpse of all the heavens? Ask him yourself, and you will find he is approachable, which makes him beautiful. Thus, curious believers would be able to hear about the rich Uthman. The gain his presence brought showed class could not contain belief. The upper classes' taunt was, please forget this faith. Each month a new slave flees from me as if possessed. And yet the man, the tortured Muslim would point out, the man who is most rich and best of blood within this town, Uthman ibn Affan, is in this same religion. Thus, the poor would win debates. For us, the poets would begin, there is no couple more illumined than Ruqayya bint Muhammad and Uthman ibn Affan. To see their love did please the Prophet, for Uthman ensured her ease. The early Muslims' faith was seldom seen, except in ever firm resolve. The clean, creative Muslims who would always shun the idols, which did shake in unison as any caravan invaded Mecca, attracted from the townsfolk calls for data. Tell us about the one unique God, please, they'd ask with hope for inward liberties. 2 dozen Muslims were there then, and these at length were joined by more. The frequencies of deadly torture rose. However, Mecca, the yearly heartbeat of Arabia, attracted throngs of pilgrims who traversed its grounds barefoot in hallowed garb. Immersed in strife, believers worshipping began to gain some pilgrim interest. A scan by Mecca's elders showed this faith did wing across the town despite their torturing. Idolaters would keep on hearing these accounts of passing pilgrims who would freeze around some Muslim man who had rehearsed by heart the verses of Quran. Well versed in Arabic, the pilgrims saw Quran had majesty sublime. Quran, more than philosophy or poetry, had been believers' conversation. Though unseen 2 years, the call to faith at last did bring society into self-questioning. Society elites did fear Quran. Its public recitation they did ban. Ruqayya and Uthman recited more and more at home, developing their core. Together did the couple feed the poor and plan how to convincingly implore the city's chiefs to treat each Muslim man and woman cordially. A deep love ran beneath the couple's social work, and 1 year turned to 3. She helped him better run his business, which across Arabia did stretch. The couple lived in love and law. On principle, they helped the poorer man and lived as if their marriage just began. The couple had some arguments, but these subsided when Uthman would bring her teas. Had they, in hidden loveliness, a son or daughter, clan divisions would be stunned. The prospect raised believers' joy and awe, and raised idolaters' hysteria. The couple drew upon a blessed plan. The Prophet, their pedestrian Quran, did guide them to the way of keeping clean. A full turn, no look back, and ever mean advancement, span by span, to more than can this temporary living offer man. For this, they overcame all stress or strain, and worked until they had exhausted pain. The couple drew upon a blessed plan. The Prophet, their pedestrian Quran, did guide them to a patience held pristine, the prayers by day and night, a wheel serene, a centered forward cruise to more than can this temporary living offer man. For this, they overcame all stress or strain, and worked until they had exhausted pain. The couple drew upon a blessed plan. The Prophet, their pedestrian Quran, did guide them to a gratitude kept keen, the circulating mercy and serene nocturnal prayers with thoughts of more than can this temporary living offer man. For this, they overcame all stress or strain, and worked until they had exhausted pain. The couple drew upon a blessed plan. The Prophet, their pedestrian Quran, showed where to fill with water hope's canteen. A good deed multiplied by 10, 19, or more by God's vast grace. That's more than can this temporary business offer, man. For this, they overcame all stress or strain, and worked until they had exhausted pain. The couple drew upon a blessed plan. The Prophet, their pedestrian Quran, did guide to fear of judgment day unseen. The couple walked the resurrection scene, between each step did live. That's more than can this temporary pressure offer man. For this, they overcame all stress or strain, and worked until they had exhausted pain. The couple drew upon a blessed plan. The Prophet, their pedestrian Quran, did guide them to a secret land of green. Contentment lacking content now had been, for faculties a vaster lawn than can this temporary prison offer man. For this they overcame all stress or strain, and worked until they had exhausted pain. The couple drew upon a blessed plan. The Prophet, their pedestrian Quran, did it guide them past the secret screen. Contentment, voiding content now, had been released from time and space that can contain but temporary gifts of man. For this, they overcame all stress or strain, and worked until they had exhausted pain. The couples stayed upon their blessed plan. The Prophet, their pedestrian Quran, inspired them with a gravity unseen. This illusion world, knowing it was sheen, felt shy near them. The pair saw further than the worldly multiplicity shown man. For this, they overcame all stress or strain, and worked until they had exhausted pain. The couple stayed upon their blessed plan. The Prophet, their pedestrian Quran, showed them surrender beckons every mean. Their weight in the abode of him had been raised to refresh ties to the artisan of everything in cosmic realms and man. For this they overcame all stress or strain, and worked until they had exhausted pain. Indeed, the couple had a blessed plan. Through him whose life personified Quran, the mastery of mysteries had been established in this mystic king and queen. True love inspired Ruqayya and Uthman, who loved deportment's everlasting span. The Lord and his beloved loved the twain, a couple who made pain itself complain. 5 springs past Revelation's start, Uthman discerned idolaters' derision ran unchecked through city streets. Though rich he'd been, new robbery and clever pranks were seen on them permissible. So thus, Uthman, recounting all his business African, he pondered all the challenges and gain in moving there and starting fresh, the wane in love by relatives, and hope for an estate less pressured for Ruqayya than the home they shared in Mecca. Yes, all these he weighed before the greater thought to please the Prophet. God will be with thee, began the Prophet to Ruqayya and Uthman, since Lut, the first to trek for godly gain art thou, said he to them. And then, again, he said this when the quiet caravan the two had joined in stealth prepared for an unknown departure. At the farewell scene, around 2 dozen Muslims. It had been not long, their luggage in their hands. The wan moon cooled the heated sand and splash. Now an illumined couple had just crossed the seas and freely relished the African breeze. The country, Abyssinia, was fine. Their small apartment had a quaint design. For weeks, Uthman was earning not more than whatever sums earned by the common man. And then the Barakat began to sing, and merchants saw him selling everything, and monthly were believers strengthening. So budded peacetime in the bloom of spring. Uthman acquired a ranch made new and full. Ruqayya's garden was impeccable. Their workers dotted pasture lands of green. Ruqayya hosted parties fit for queens. But Mecca's mad idolaters sent clan debaters with a gift-filled caravan to Abyssinia. They hoped to down the king's esteem for Muslims there. His crown weighed less, though, than his Christian justice. Ra, the palace of the king. These wise men, these wise men saw thy villainy, he told the Muslims. Please respond. They told him, by Quran, the ease and strife of Mary who went east. Uthman inspired. An awestruck king believed Quran. Weeks passed and heaven blessed all Africa, as angels guarded radiant Ruqayya. She bore Uthman a righteous son whose name, Abdullah, was inspired by Isa's fame. Ruqayya Abdullah thus became. Uthman Abu Abdullah thus became. Across 12 months, their African success spread, and the Abyssinian king, hidden in the robe of love, his reign was blessed. O God, what soil you grant, what rain! In Mecca, then, a traveler who'd seen Abu and Abdullah on the green, expansive ranch they owned, she said she saw the couple pleased in Abyssinia. Like some elixir, did her stories pour new life into the patient Muslim core. Though Muslims' wealth from Africa did soar, clan elders feared the Prophet's grandson more. In time, the African-Arabian trade caravan inspired, and soon the Meccan Abyssinian business flourished, won Abdullah more and more distinction. The house of bin Affan indeed immersed itself in social work. The thirstiest thirst, the workers' strife, and tips on local law. They helped each Muslim new in Africa. And then, at last, from Mecca, news outlined how most idolaters who once maligned believers now did pray with them. A plan and many hopes were packed. So bin Affan, his wife, and son on strong intentions wing to Mecca went for further worshipping. They saw the sources of news wonders bring, opponents with respectful wondering. Thus, through the Prophet's light and through Quran, great sympathies pervaded every clan. And yet, how safe it seemed that African existence to which some returned. Uthman, Ruqayya, and Abdullah stayed. The blame and animosity to which they came had worsened there in Mecca, but the couple used each contact made in Africa well, and affluence again found them. Immersed they all their wealth to help relieve the thirst of Hashemite Muslims under harsh clan boycott. As savings dove, Hazrat Uthman ensured that food did reach them from the town, while pressuring young Quraysh of renown to end the boycott. It was lifted. Awe and wonder soon took hold of all of Mecca. The night journey and ascension. Wherefore dost thou ask? Belief in Wahi is more. Behold, just after 13 years of blame and persecution, mixed with secret fame and admiration, Muslims there in Mecca were invited to Yathrib, whose folks saw in Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, his family, and each companion, a leader. One full week of steps did span the tough trek to this Yathrib town. Uthman, Ruqayya, and the young Abdullah went together. Secretly, most Muslims went. The last to leave were two, the Venerable Abu Bakr and the Holy Prophet. Full with faith, their trust in God did sate their thirst, and let them move past traps to songs rehearsed. In Yathrib, now Medina called, the pledge Medinan folk had given to their judge, the Holy Prophet, was for life. The grudge for Muslims Meccan nobles kept brought edge of sword to edge of sword and Badr. Please remain in town and give Ruqayya ease. Ruqayya bint Muhammad and Uthman ibn Affan conversed until the wan nocturnal moon went crimson, then unseen. Day broke, the sun, it rose, it set, hearts broke. Ah, Badr, three opponents for each man. Medina, recitations of Quran. Ah, Badr, angels' arrows fell like rain. Medina, his reciting soothed her pain. Ah, Badr, the divine majestic plan. Medina, in wudu, he heard adhan and word that she had died. A voice said, she's the daughter of that holy prophet who's a mercy for each cosmic realm. Uthman observed the crying jinn and sad human lamenting. But again and then again, folks heard him saying once again, eternally alive, glorious God. Wan moonlight, flickering candlelight, cyan blanket, her absence everywhere. The queen was buried on the day about 16 score Muslim soldiers. Their return began. With shouts of victory, the heralds ran through streets. War booties! Ramadan's soft breeze then served free meals sent by Uthman's decrees. Uthman and Kulthum, Book 3. Medina twinkled by fame's worldly shine, though not where once a lady sat to dine. The master of her house, Ibn Affan, recalled her only as a husband can. And then the cries of battle new did ring. 3,000 strong from Mecca come marching. Their loss and brother had such potent sting that for their argument renewed they'd bring not 3 but 4 times more the troops to kill. And betrayal at the start of battle, compounded hardships at the deadly scene. And yet the fight began, and all had seen outnumbered Muslims had the better plan. Their triumph set, some Muslim archers ran too early from key posts that had been down. Till then, their foes' last cavalry. A frown on scores of Muslim troops, the inertia of new counter-strikes did cause. Muslims saw their win annulled. Among the casualties, some heard the Holy Prophet. Thus some froze from shame past battle's end. Too quick a scan had missed his hidden life. So vowed Uthman, who counted in the troops that mercy saw more excellence toward that godly awe. Allahu Akbar. The troops trekked home into Medina came, which illuminated deserters' blame. The heavy draw the troops had won could tame now each Medinan political game. At home, Sayyidina Uthman, he prayed past thoughts of marriage, war, and trade. When came the name for marriage of Hafsa, Uthman replied, whispering, Ruqayya. So Omar Abu Hafsa to the door of God's beloved went, complaining, more than good, Uthman has worn a mourner's gown. Complaining thus, he learned of more renown reserved for Hafsa and Uthman's station. The Holy Prophet raised all folks' ration. The Holy Prophet raised all folks' ration when himself he married Lady Hafsa and gave to Uthman Abu Abdullah another daughter for to wed. Her aim, Ruqayya's widower's sad heart to tame. Sayyidatuna Kulthum, a rain of affection she showered on the twain, Ibn Affan and his son the noble. A mother's love she made for him stable. That boy whose health waned after crossing seas, who frolicked when the Prophet came for teas. An angel for Abdullah's soul came down and took him between the night prayers of the town. The Holy Prophet as Imam immersed Abdullah's funeral in God's light first. The Holy Prophet's grandson by Uthman, Abdullah ibn Uthman, African, born by Lady Ruqayya, died at 9 bright years of age. In Uthman's house, a fine new absence lit the halls. In Medina, his precious moments lived in Africa, lit up those absences he felt at core. At night, Kulthum and Uthman prayed more. And then the frontier scouts of Muslims ran into Medina, warning of a plan. And then the news swept through, an army more equipped than history lurched to their door. And then the consulting, then the digging chore. Medina's trench did halt all but the roar. The greatest Muslim generals, Uthman among them, each defended their trench span. The army's siege, a month of straight noon sun. At night they went, by Fajr Muslims won. The fight more faith entrenched in every man. The battle of the trench, the Jewish clan, Honeka's treachery did show. So keen revenge was took by Muslims who had been betrayed. The Muslim army then began discussing how to treat each captive man and woman. Quick Uthman, he bought them twain, the men and women, having gold coins lain in piles upon a treasury divan. Those who believed were then freed by Uthman, while those who stayed Jews worked as employees. The breeze of peace enwrapped Medina's trees. Among 1,400, Uthman left home for Hajj, adhering to the plan the Holy Prophet made. A mounted train of Meccan fighters sought them, but in vain. For as they neared, the pilgrim caravan had swung toward a well. Upon the tan path, Meccan fighters had but footprints seen. Believing pilgrims and the Meccan mean, who questioned their intent, at length began to send ambassadors. And so Uthman, at last, the Prophet sent with all the keys to make the point where love accompanies. From Hudaybiyan heights the bright Uthman and 10 companions as his aides, each man in pilgrim garb, to Mecca went, to gain some counterpoint to tribal regions sane. He first found hidden in the merchant scene his strong friends, thus 114 rich houses and their families they saw. Those Meccan chieftains who would not feel awe towards 11 critical of war. Dynamic through his efforts to implore, sereneness his deportment did outpour. Through striving, he unlocked each secret door, although to most of Mecca no more than what those 11 had when they began was one. And yet, Uthman, the chieftain's poison speech, he made inert, recalling a hard season. Although with him they were agreeable, their unity was not enforceable. Although they sought now treaties to obtain, they withered in their votes to ascertain. Their multiplicity delayed their ease. For days, Uthman prayed with the mountain breeze. Hazrat Uthman's blood relatives in Mecca had known about the passing of Ruqayya. They offered him a bride in golden gown, but he refused, reciting his renown. The chieftains in that bustling Hajj season said, Muslims will not pray, but you, as one, are free to do whatever without blame. No, said he, we for our beloved came. At once the myriad secrets Uthman for every prophet had preserved began to bloom in friendship with the one who sees. Uthman kept silent, reading subtleties. The elevated Muslims sought their man. In his place came the angel of Quran, invisible as like the last day for Hajj duties when the sacrifice is more. That day the angel brought an inspiration. The prophet called for oaths from each companion. Obedience to God, his prophet's plan, the prophet last pledged. This hand for Uthman. For hours upon the mount did blessings rain. An envoy came, a treaty did he chain. The pilgrims stunned, the prophet calm. Uthman returned and pledged a sealing oath. Quran did ease their homeward trek, and favor shine upon their treaty, for which peace was signed. In peace, believers grew with every season. In peace, Medina radiated reason. As synchronicity was rendered stable, Islam illuminated every label. The peace treaty allowed the Medinan moments to shine upon Arabian clans, and they allied. Some, though not so keen, did clash in war and covert strikes. Those seen in Khyber's towers fought this way. Uthman scaled first their towers. Falling rocks would fan him as he rose above the troops. The gain in worldly awe such feats would bring was plain. And after years, not more than 10, the plan of peace was mocked by Meccan nobles. Span horizons Muslims did, and marched with ease. Mecca won, the Prophet gave amnesties. Islam united the Umayyad clan, and praising their insightful son Uthman, each clan, a Muslim, joined the new campaign. They marched on through the valley of Hunain, but archers perched atop an ambush plan, with arrows filled the valley air. Uthman and 8 stood by the Prophet who, serene, did organize a counter-strike unseen. Those archers routed, Muslims then began to siege Sa'if, which, though stood still, Uthman in peace did win it with his merchant ease. Thus Rome feared news of Muslim victories. A sermon in Medina then began. The Holy Prophet called on every man. Since Roman troops at frontier towns were seen, those towns were shaded now by Constantine. Believers sat in silence when a man, he stood and said, I'll offer all I can, 100 camels each with seat and rein. Uthman thus spoke and sat right down again. As crops did beckon, fill each caravan, the Holy Prophet called on every man. Since battling Rome was difficult extreme, the Prophet said, donate through every mean. Believers sat in silence when a man, he stood and said, I'll offer all I can, 200 camels each with seat and rein. Uthman thus spoke and sat right down again. Since past horizons dwelt an awesome plan, the Holy Prophet called on every man. Those who would oust the Romans would be lean, and fight a force before now never seen. Believers sat in silence when a man, he stood and said, I'll offer all I can. 300 camels, each with seat and rein. Uthman the speaking nearly sat again. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Since past horizons dwelt an awesome plan, the Holy Prophet called on every man. Those who would oust the Romans would be lean, and fight a force before now never seen. Believers sat in silence when, Iman, he stood and said, I'll offer all I can. 300 camels, each with seat and rein. Uthman thus speaking nearly sat again. The Prophet from his pulpit then came down, Allahu Akbar, and said, Let no one judge Uthman's renown. That evening did Kulthum and Uthman compile their savings that were African. By some gold had they treasuries immersed, 1,000 gold to slay the army's thirst. Uthman brought all his gold and brought it well. Upon the Prophet's lap the gold coins fell. Amid a golden garden left behind, the Prophet showed the Sheikh his silent mind. The Prophet said, No act will harm Uthman. The Prophet said, No act will harm Uthman. It was a sunny day around the town. Now built, Uthman's house twinkled like a crown. Soon 30,000 from Arabia, with death and steel, trekked north to Syria. Rome's troops then fled toward their empire's core. So northern tribes with Muslims allied more. Believers now held all Arabia in feelings of protection and of awe. Enriched, the army head back to the town, Medina of the luminous renown. Inside, a funeral had just been done. They wept when hearing of the buried one. The Prophet's daughter, Kulthum her name, had like her sister passed away the same, under the roof of that most gentle man, who with them never raised his voice nor hand. If I had 40 daughters more than these, the Prophet told Uthman, I would wed those to you, and one by one, indeed, until not one remained. Alone at night, a full Quran, Uthman did breathe, his heart did long. At last, the Prophet led the Hajj to bring completion to each Prophet's worshipping. Uthman wed mother's choice. Thus everything the Prophet blessed before the Prophet's span concluded and his afterlife began. Book 4, The Two Sheikhs. Alone, Uthman of double light sat well beyond all best believers' scope. A spell of time elapsed since Abu Bakr, sign of truth, declared the passing of their fine heroic guide and friend. Beyond that town of luminous renown, and in that town of luminous renown, he sat as one. Uthman of double light became a sun. Each moment past the Prophet's death, an age. All firmness flickered round Uthman. The edge of time and space were seen to bend. No one was seen around him. Every forehead's frown, a wave. Each child, a memory of man. The masjid of the Prophet, best of man, possessed a corner where the cosmos coursed into the breathing of a man immersed in folds of crimson cloth. Uthman, whose well awaits in heaven, sat alone. How hell is nearer to us now than when the kind and holy Prophet walked amongst us, pined the bright Uthman, and thinking thus did ban a calm return to earthly speech. How can we now avoid the snares of Satan, bent on mischief and those of this world? He went on to himself, when suddenly the twin guides flanked him. Abu Bakr, truest in his words, asked, pointing to his twin, Uthman, good Umar greeted you today. How can we now avoid the snares of Satan, vain of all, and snares of this world too? My train of thoughts was thus this while past, so I saw not, nor could hear him. Yes, the formula Shahada with sincere belief is for this, said the Prophet when I did implore. So Abu Bakr's caliphate began. At speed, Osama's army with Uthman the Bright trekked north. The Romans, still well versed in ranking armies, soon grew tense. A burst of fighting by the northern desert well of Wadi al-Qari cracked the schemes in full of northern tribes in no man's land who, in the Arab lands, feared Rome. To them, within that land, no Romans came, and so they fell, the northern tribes, like trees that by some well-armed man crashed to the earth and made the trees about him shudder. Tribes thus paid their fees. Returning home, Uthman the Bright was free to fast, to pray, and feel Qur'an's momentum. The Caliph Abu Bakr, truest judge of men and jinn who make the holy pledge, sent armies at apostate tribes. For fine advice, the Caliph kept a group to mine prophetic wisdom known to them, and one among these grand companions was the son Affan did raise. So home he stayed, Uthman of double light, and counseled. As the span of Caliph Abu Bakr's life neared ease, the Arabs had, by then, paid full their fees. So after 2 years, 3 months, and some 9 days as believers' caliph, that divine decree of death approached. O death, no sting of yours can touch true lovers, those who sing the song of absence. Abu Bakr, judge of men, commanded grand companions, pledge allegiance then to Omar when I'm seen to breathe no more. And thus he left pristine. And so great Omar's caliphate began, and every grand companion, like Uthman, was barred from leaving town by new decrees. The lordly Caliph Umar held that these companions, saintly folk, should not be seen near scandal, but in holy towns keep clean. The bright Uthman of double light, a sun for souls and rain for farmers, helped each one who could not eat for lack of funds, a well commissioned now and then, and prayers by full moonlight. Quran and fasting helps refine the lights of longing, lights both gross and fine. And lordly Caliph Umar saw the sign of Hajj approach, which made him then assign its leadership to brilliant Affan's son. And years elapsed, though news believers won some battle kept repeating. Right Uthman led Hajj each year and soon became the man most learned in the holy rites, to bring the pilgrims who, from every country, sing their love of God, to bring them to the aid of their own souls. This was Uthman's new trade. His payment was to see believers won. His payment was to see believers won. In far-off eastern lands did Khalid quell alliances between the Persians, well prepared for war and frontier tribes. With fine maneuvers, Khalid's army held the line. And when Medina heard that Khalid won, folks prayed in thanks, for odds were 3-1. So soon letters from the Nile and Jordan, Soon letters from the Nile and Jordan ran the same. We beat the Romans to a man. Just Caliph Omar with his whip was seen in streets throughout this ever richer scene. He waited for some slip, then hit someone. Though demons stalk the earth, they Omar shun. His term was just, as Halwa can attest. For when he liked the foreign gift, the rest of town was treated too. And when each clan was gripped by famine, Caliph Omar ran at night to help distribute meals. And down, at last, the rain came falling on the town. And when Medina heard that Syria was conquered, with Jerusalem where awe does grow in tree and rock, folks prayed. The town of Awe surrendered, but the chief's renown asked Caliph Omar come to them, the one most firm against the strip Uthman. But one day Caliph Omar went and brought the fame of justice to Jerusalem. The name of God filled the holy air, and devils ran, and Rome retreated. Persia could not fan. The name of God filled the holy air, and devils ran, and Rome retreated. Persia could not fan its fire no more, unsure. And all of these, belief in one God led to victories. And all the world in straight rows stood, immersed in prayer, it seemed, and Caliph Omar, first to prostrate, led them all in deeds. No man who learns of Omar's death cries not. The man who stabbed you and those others who had been, like you, prostrate in prayer, had never been a Muslim. Grand companions said. The king of all the worlds the Caliph thanked. This thing was no attack by Muslims. So his span as Caliph of believers lasted an entire 10 years plus half a year. This chore of leadership, just Umar said before he passed away, belongs to 6 who, more than all companions, must now lead. If 4 days pass beyond my death and no one can decide who leads, then kill all 6. Uthman was thus elected by the voting done. And so he took the oath from everyone, each grand companion in Arabia, each Muslim jinn and angel armed with awe. Book 5, The Caliph. Book 5 from the epic poem, The Marriages of Hadrat Uthman, radiallahu anhu, written by Zishan Syed. Book 5, The Caliph. The Caliphate of doubly bright Uthman, the son of calm Affan, in peace began. He measured claims that slave conspiracies compelled revenge attacks. He paid the fees of blood himself to save a Muslim son. The news of Caliph Omar's death did stun each land it passed. So angels armed with awe to bright Uthman reported what they saw. Intelligence angelic then began informing Caliph doubly bright Uthman. His tenure started as a wedding does, with vows to God Almighty, promises of duty, presentation of a ring. And thus the Prophet's signet was the thing that wed Uthman to ordered firmament, that sealed the earthly letters that he sent. Inheriting municipalities so vast they spanned horizons, swallowed seas, and subtly warped the accent of a language. The shining caliph soon would have to judge between the precedents of laudable, sublime, heroic caliphs all could tell were wisest in their day, or newly pleased the spirit of the Prophet, heaven's ease, by gathering what was, to him, sent down and publishing Quran. The children towns appear to squabble over which of 7 enchanted dialects best champions the truth, each one correct. The caliph's council, all grand companions, then selects to quell debates about what was revealed divine. The council picks a reading, then consigns the rest to flames. The grand companions' town, aglow with firelight as the sun goes down, a foot then smoothens pebbles as Adhan their silence interrupts. and calls each man and woman to a simpler universe. 6 copies of this standard holy text, compiled by Caliph Bright Uthman, whose well awaits in heaven, help the cities still their hearts. Maturity in Yemen, kind, compassionate Medina, Mecca lined with truth, for Cairo, Kufa, 2 Qur'ans, and finally, a text for Syrians. In Syria, the subtle governor, picked by great Omar many years before, was happy to accept the book now sent by Caliph Doubly Bright, who gave consent, at last, for fighting on the waves. The 2 of you must go, the Caliph wrote, yes, you and your most precious wife, if on a barge you deem it safe to fight Rome's naval edge. Great Omar's ban to fight upon the brine was lifted with this double-edged design. So then the subtle governor would budge the Romans from their deadly naval edge, and push back here and push back there. The tan would cut to bolster fleets, as islands can the greatest booty make. O desert char, by embers, drowsy after meals, how far your folk have come! As kings, as queens, as one great wave of footfalls on new shores that glisten. When, in the course of centuries unspent, the sea between Rome and the Orient is named Othman's Lake by its masters, then grand fleets will float past memories of din. But now, the early days, those desert town commanders dressed in battle's metal gown, unfurled new sails and clashed with Rome each season, uncurled new maps and spread believers' reason. Across uncertain Africa, they'd trudge, past desert, mountains, past each frontier's edge. All this occurred while they'd awakened first to pray before the dawn and have rehearsed some verses from the holy text, dispel diversions, wrote their caliph masterful. That eye in which there's no discernment bred is like a foe within its owner's head. Such stern directives sent he to each one who held some power over population. Complaints from Egypt made a man step down. The governor who'd conquered all their towns. Complaints from Kufa made the governor resign. A man of heaven who could not ignore a complex loan repayment. Treasuring new freedom and new wealth, each realm now sang, that eye in which there's no discernment bred is like a foe within its owner's head. Believer armies worked to spread their awe that human choice is basic to the law. Divinity is singular, and all communities were sent a prophet well. The Caliph Uthman, doubly bright, had seen his great Egyptian, Kufic, Damascene battalions win and quickly change his map's perimeters, a living fringe. By day he read and wrote. He turned serene 10 problems, then preempted 17. The stipends for the people grew by far, a quarter more in stipends since Omar the Great had routed Rome and Persia. Clan identities gave way. Believers ran the governance and garrisons, with chores of leadership all put to bed. Some more Quran the Caliph often read, alone, lone well in paradise awaiting. What can tell you how it was? Uthman, without a care, slept in the Prophet's mosque, alone. Just there, sometimes beneath a blanket, maybe woolen, the pattern of the pebbles printed on his side when he awoke. Rebellion's shine across the towns of Persia flashed, but died. So when the owner of the final reign of Persia's line of emperors would deign not sleep in hay, preferring bed or spa, the farmer giving refuge slew him. Ah, repay me with these ruby rings, melt down our corpse's crown, my lass. His wife had sewn a purse to life from silky robes found on the lifeless limbs. All this as Ramadan would melt believers' cravings, nights enliven, seeds sown for afterlives. The Caliph's plan to grant believers food and drink to dine on ear and after fasts would help refine their gratitude. In fatter months, the tone and mood of masses shifted, leapt, stooped down. The newest province, Africa, had men that travelled ever westward on those 10 fast piebald steeds who'd sip with privilege from ponds of plenty by the ocean's edge. And did he come from other worlds, that tame Imam Iberian, who stood the same in morning prayers amid that soil and scent that centuries would find intoxicant? Who stood the same in morning prayers as generations yet to form a line? Since Battle of the Masts, a peaceful nine then crossed a strait and prayed near Spanish towns, unseen. They drew a map of what they found and sent it to the Caliph, showing shore and shore of Africa and Spain, a door to seas surrounding Rome. He wrote, intent on subjugating Europe, armies sent from Spain and Syria will come from two opposing fronts of Europe. Then they'll view Constantinople and at last converge within the city's core, a total siege. Reports would in Byzantium begin with the desert monotheists' stunning winds. The Cyprus island to the Caliph went. Iran to the empire to the Caliph went. Sistan, Tabaristan, and Rhodes were next. Azerbaijan and Kurdistan were next. The only people who a treaty won were Nubians due south of garrisons in Egypt. Nubians had mastered an exquisite art of war, to hurl a lance at holes in helmets from which war was seen. The only person who a Byzantine battalion bettered as a European defender was a shady one from Yemen, a dragon-tongued deceiver who was cursed, and by the very men he claimed were gods. The Caliph of the Seal of Prophets can feel all the heartbeats in Afghanistan, hear all the cities whispers with the towns, and spy the cosmos through the book sent down. Next year he conquered all Transoceania, but he said, no, I still miss my Ruqayya. There was a time when in his house the sound of her voice calling them to hurry down for breaking fast in Ramadan, both son and father, could be heard. And though no reason to have little boys to fast, Abdullah came to feast upon the goodies all the same. 3 decades later, cousin Al-Hassan would in that dining room tell bright Uthman, we'll die for you, my army, me. He says, go home, my nephew, wait for God's decrees. Along this new world cared for by that man, clairvoyant democrat beloved, sand would prayer floor make as folks in rows would stand attentively in afternoons, Adhan just having gathered them. Ameen, they'd say as one, and then disperse pristine. Along with marriages to each new town, whose people holy geniuses would crown, the Caliph, bright Uthman, kept busy in the standards for sincere administration. All this while, on the side, he ran a huge financial empire. So he took no wage. As wealth would fill folks' pockets, hymns the air, the grand companions would, dispersed, repair the tears of fabric that the average believer made. As masses came to rage the grievances at Hajj, the Caliph sent them home, enlightened, loved. You can't with mundane things the Prophet's love compare. Companions beat you just by sitting there. The 90 million invocations your sweet fingers count cannot surpass the snore of God's beloved that they heard when large they stood outside his war tent as the guards. That standard holy text, whose copies went to 6 great cities, 2 produced one kept by Caliph doubly bright, a 7th twin, as if he was a city too, within. He read this gathered Bismillah. He read this gathered book through those half dozen years privately, enjoying what companion consensus could achieve. He sensed, though, ripples from new believers' hearts, which felt less stable. The grand companions are the starry shine that help guide masses across horizon lines. The Caliph, in his 60s, wed a Christian. Superbly beautiful, she spoke with reason. Their conversations and debates were spent on language of prophetic covenants. She saw him pray while others slept. Then a complete Quran recited he in a rakat one overnight. She loved this wine for ears, inebriating hearts. But thine heart missed recitals from a bygone age, when Kulthum's sobriety assuage. Uthman to China's dynasty, the Tang, had sent a delegation that their king received with so much love that in Canton he built a mosque, a zenith of the Han. That final Chinese caliph, born of women, ere earth sterility, that darkest omen, proclaims that God is God, that man is man, and animals can't sit as humans can. Proclaims he thus that distant day when green grass jungles cover Arab sands. Serene he'll be, that shepherd who lost his sheep when in unnamed forests finds he ruins gone from maps. Upon them dawns the hour. But first, remember all the love that was rehearsed there, even when the Caliph, bright Uthman, enjoyed his recitation of Quran amidst the trespassing murderer's frown. Great Adam, seated, contemplating noun. O heaven night, O cosmos bright, O awe, O gentle shyness, highness, whom he saw. Siesta dream showed you your love would bound around the pain that you absorbed from towns who littered 1,500 seasons on the frontiers, deserts, heartland, everyone a sheikh who needed time to grow, to fame that God himself confirmed. For your sake, game was hunted, wine was poured. O bright Uthman, a heavenly iftar with honey, an array of dates in non-linear ways, and rose milk. Breakfast with the prophets, easy. Once Caliph Ali, eloquent, responding, told why the civil war was happening. For Abu Bakr, Umar, both Uthman and I, but serving us, you class of men. Once Caliph Ali, eloquent, responding, told why the civil war was happening. For Abu Bakr, Umar, both Uthman and I, but serving us, you class of men. Book 6, Double Light. From matter free, the deity divine, angelic human souls who've passed recline. Unending contemplation, love broke, and exquisite thought released in presence can through mortal measures change a sacred thing, that in great lasting attribute to bring awakened everlasting fragrance, wing the turtle, birdfish, ox are vibrating across the lips of this most telling well, that in its depths requires a prayer to draw the arc of motion, me releasing, seen eternal, me ascending, me unseen. The way of standards outward limits man, a teleporting path, a hidden plan. What you and I may hazard with a down reveals the offense that our hearts may crown. Unending concentration, lover's awe, a deeper contemplation, wonder, law. Emerging on the roof, construction's keys, a touch to paradise, a woman frees, distinctive knowledge, open heart the man. All starlight hid in a Ramadan Quran. The boys had bothered you, so you traverse upstairs, and from the roof there leads addressed. Companions, empires, afterlife. Companions, empires, afterlife, a claw in plumes, the size of lifetimes, stepped in a reflecting pond, a footprint, footfall, blend, just sitting across from them in quiet kind, upon the edges of a well, cloth, light, a trinket sold a rope of light, a man. They said themselves, I'm martyr, not a king. I'm thrice the holy prophet's signet ring. The children learn to crawl, archetype, clang, and vision. Wives are starting food fights. Zing, the arrow, woodland secret. Boy's failed plan makes mess. His father helps to pick up bran. Year 6 of 12, the holy signet ring is lost inside a well. A dragon's wing then stirs, though overhead the angels span the sky on piebald steeds for bright Uthman. A pilgrimage of wordy echoes mind the kingdom shadow, otherworldly line that splendors cover movement, children, man, and woman I have given to my clan. A tycoon wandering takes not a thing. Soft, gentle, playful ties of womb that bring a common mercy to unending string of gravity, a story folks are building. To juggle planets round the cosmos well, the circle round the paths will now excel. She underestimates, delivers keen. She weeds, woos, cheek to cheek is love seen. Free smiling, happy babies. Nations can be nursed, dream milk makes sense, toys harder than. A giggling paradisal wealth is down the street. The way you walk there, crimson gown, to babysit 11 million, saw the wood to build a ship, porch, wheel, cruise, saw a continent as black line set on seas. A mirror of two, sky open, sandy please, an evanescent species, glimpse the man. Would love cleanse, prop, delight, a darkness ran? The prophet's love, his sword, his law. Inheritance so sacred it would draw perfection from reciters of God's name, the genius from the scholar's legal aim, the measured fearlessness from kings who tame. All three in rightly guided caliphs came. The tact shown by the holy prophet made the world, became his Al Hassan's staunch aid. Hope, child, unite the people for Allah. Not you, but not you, I, but just is here Allah. So splendid speech sends ripples evermore in rings throughout the centuries or more. Expanding in an intellect, her gown, her eyes half circle. You had given down divorce so many times to gorgeous women. Your father intervened one time, give one big speech to warn would-be fathers-in-law who didn't care, across some eons caw the interstellar birds drunk with your name. To touch you meant that girl to heaven came. The spirit masters centuries can bring may swim in light your oceans neath the wing. Archangels spread in concert with Uthman. The caliphs, and the holy prophets span. Those masters of the spirit are a sign there is an order armed with awe so fine it's hidden, even in a merchant's plan. Some decades after civil wars, a man who'd friended God observed a wondrous thing. An old man gripped the Kaaba, whimpering. His withered face and palms were shivering. He pled for God's forgiveness. Then wailing, decried, I'm cut off from the merciful. The friend of God asked, Why? He said, Rebel was I 1,000 months ago. Obscene you were, said friend, but God forgives. Gangrene, the man continued, took the life of a comrade who broke the caliph's staff, Jinn's paw at other comrades' faces till they seized their minds with madness. I, but I, with these now crippled hands, had slain him, kicked the man so hard, the friend of God did, that he ran. The way of prophets, caliphs, and Uthman is easy if you stop to think. A man with simple tastes needs simple truths. A grain turns into bread. A hand is cup in rain. A roof is pillared by your peace, and clean respect is clothing. Simple hearts can mean you vote your conscience and obey the law. Your will then rules this world's ephemera. Without a means more when praying, or to put it simply, straight path means the door of God is here within your chest. Love's ore is free from judgment here within your core. The Prophet, freed from means more. Uthman, for kin of Al Hussein and Al Hassan, means life renewed, means guarding every season till God Almighty is a single reason. Book 7, Apostrophe. Most merciful of merciful, oh please, God, pardon me, forgive, and grant me ease. I've wronged the way of he who prayed at night. I've wronged the way of he who prayed by night. As diamonds dripped from eyelids to his shirt. The way of he who gave by day and sent free meals throughout these earthly continents. For his sake, God, in double lights immerse my grave, my rise, and to this epic verse. Alhamdulillah.